Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Shaun Tomson, who's here to share with us his new book, The Surfer and the Sage, A Guide to Survive and Ride Life's Waves. So many of you know Shaun. He's a world surfing champion, an inductee in the Jewish and South African Sports Hall of Fame, the U.S. Surfing Hall of Fame, and has been described as one of the greatest surfers of all times and one of the most influential surfers of the century by Surfer Magazine. Shaun is a past board member and ambassador for Surfrider Foundation, the world's largest environmental group dedicated to protecting the world's oceans, waves, and beaches. And he received the SEMA Environmentalist of the Year Award in 2002. He is a past board member of the Santa Barbara Boys and Girls Club and is an ambassador for Boys to Men, a youth mentoring organization. Shaun is a business administration and finance graduate from the University of Natal and has a master's degree in leadership from Northeast University. So let's welcome to the show, Shaun Tomson.
It's great to be here. I'm speaking to you from beautiful Santa Monica in California.
Well, it's such a delight to have you here and to talk about your new book. What inspired you to write this?
Well, I do a lot of keynote speaking to large corporations, schools, universities, prisons, PTSD survivors. And through COVID, I'd do these virtual presentations and I'd ask people, send me a word, text me a word that describes how you're feeling. And the four principal words were stress, anxiety, depression, and disconnection. I actually called it a sad mindset. And then I had a chance meeting with my co-author, Noah Ben-Shia, who's a philosopher and a poet, wonderful author who's written millions of books and or sold millions of copies. And I told him about this, and he'd suggested let's write a book together. And that was really the impetus and the inspiration is to perhaps create a simple guide, a perspective that people could use to help them through this malaise that we've all been impacted by over the last couple of years.
Well, I love how you start your book talking about anxiety. So how do we find a place of calm?
Well, for me, my place of calm is certainly the ocean. And even if you're not able on that particular day to walk down the beach or paddle out in the water, it's wonderful just to think that you're near the ocean and to think of that beautiful, calming, moving, fluid medium. And for me, I found that you don't actually have to indulge or participate in the actual experience, but even the vicarious experience is good enough to sort of slow down the heart rate, to reduce the feeling of anxiety.
So should people look for their own place that they really find that inner peace, maybe a walk in the woods or something?
Yes, I found that connecting with nature is such a wonderful healer. And I think it's something that really connects you in a humble way to the universe. Where when we walk out in nature, we just get connected with our feet in the earth and the connectivity to the fresh air, the connectivity to the trees around us. It really calms, I think, the spirit, and it renews and refreshes us. In some ways, it's almost like food for the mind. It's like nourishment for your mental state. So I encourage anyone that's feeling stressed and anxious is the simplest way is get out in nature. And sometimes if you can't get out in nature that day, the vicarious experience of that feeling of walking through the woods, that feeling of swimming in the ocean, that feeling of paddling out on a surfboard, even that mental activity can reduce that feeling of stress that you might be having at that point in time.
So you say that for you, it's the ocean, and we can definitely see why. I mean, you're a champion surfer. What does it feel like when you're out there surfing?
Oh, surfing is the most wonderful sensation. I stood up on a surfboard for the first time when I was 9 years old, and just leaping to my feet on that moving wave and looking out at the world differently, seeing the world differently, standing up and rushing across the surface of the ocean. You get that immediate feeling, surfers call it being stoked, that feeling of exhilaration, that feeling of absolute joy. And that is, I think, is what keeps surfers doing it. It becomes, for many, and certainly it was that way for me, it does become an obsession. You become obsessed with surfing, obsessed with paddling out there. And yes, there is that adrenaline rush, and that is certainly part of it. But that feeling of just being connected and part of the wider universe, it's a wonderful, I suppose, a spiritual moment. And it happens to surfers all the time. I was driving down from Santa Barbara, where I live today, with my wife, and we stopped off at this beautiful beach called Topanga, and we sat there with our little doggy, and we just watched the waves come in. And even though we weren't surfing, we were certainly part of that beautiful experience.
Well, that's definitely one way to get in that zone. You talk about in your book to never turn your back on the ocean. So, what does that mean, and how does that relate to life?
Well, for me, those words are pretty common in the experience of the Beach Boys in Waikiki in Hawaii, which was where surfing was originally founded. And that has two principal meanings. One is that never turn your back on the ocean, because the ocean can be a dangerous place, and one has to always be aware of the dangers associated with the ocean. But also, it has a profound and more deeper meaning, and that is don't walk away from the ocean, and don't walk away from that experience, and also protect this experience that you've loved. My father was a champion swimmer in his youth, and his dream was to go and compete in the Olympic Games, and was very badly attacked by a shark while he was surfing just prior to the London Olympics, and that destroyed his swimming career. It nearly killed him. But he never lost this profound love that he had for the ocean. And I like to think that when I think of that, I will never turn my back on the ocean, which is a part of 12 lines that I wrote many years ago called the Surfer's Code. I like to think that one has to maintain that love for whatever it is that you love. And even if a tragedy befalls you, or if there's an unfortunate occurrence, still connect with that love. And I often think of my father and what happened to him. He never lost this profound love that he had for the ocean, and taught me how to swim and surf 100 yards away from when he'd had this terrible attack.
That's just remarkable. I think a lot of people wouldn't have the courage to do that. And for your father to have that courage and to enjoy it, being out there surfing, teaching you to surf, I mean, that says a lot about him.
Yeah, he was a very, very, I think he was a very unique thinker. I think the way that he looked at life, he had this great spirit of optimism and hope, and also had this wonderful notion that sport and athletics was about honor and integrity. He always said to me, Shaun, there is nothing in life worse than a person that cheats in sport. To him, sport sort of typified and embodied the Olympic ideals of faster, higher, but all in a very honorable way that was filled with integrity. The whole Olympic notion of sport, and it was just wonderful to grow up with that type of father.
It sounds like, just especially for someone who surfs and is so good at surfing, just like a dream growing up in that type of a household.
Yeah, it was a dream, and back then, surfing was a very small sport. It didn't have, it wasn't international like it is today. Today, there's millions and millions of surfers around the world. Wherever there's an ocean, you'll find surfers, including in the Mediterranean is filled with surfers now, and all along Europe, people surf. They surf in Indonesia, they surf in Japan. Wherever there's an ocean, there are surfers today. So the surfing has certainly exploded in popularity. And when I started, it was very small. It wasn't particularly popular, but it was great to be able to be at the cutting edge of building this lifestyle into a sport and ultimately an industry. And I was part of the first group of pro surfers and first group of people that were involved in the surfing industry. So it's wonderful to see how it's developed today. It's an Olympic sport. The young guy and gal just won the first Olympic gold medals. Carissa Moore from Hawaii and Italo Ferreira from Brazil won the first gold medals that have ever been awarded in surfing. So it's wonderful to see the progression of the sport.
And for our listeners too, I mean, your book, The Surfer and the Sage, has so many great pictures. Looking at all those, I was kind of reminiscing about being at the beach. So-
Yeah, the pictures are, I think, a big part of the book, and they're all taken by an iconic photographer, a guy called Dan Merkel. And we wanted to have a mixture of surfing shots and surfing lifestyle, and then also just some beautiful pictures that really show I think, the power and also the calming effect of the ocean. You can have those two elements juxtaposed together, the power and the violence and the impact, and then you can have the picture of a lighthouse and this beautiful, tranquil, tranquil sea. So, what we really tried to do in the book, both Noah and I, is the book's about the duality of life, and the 18 chapters in the book, and we chose 18 specifically because the book it's a spiritual book. And in Hebrew, every letter has a numeric associated with it. And I said to Noah, let's construct a number of chapters that are spiritually significant. And he said, well, we've got to do 18 then, because in Hebrew, 18 is chai, and that means life. So the book is obviously about life. So it has 18 chapters, and every single chapter is about a duality. It's about anxious and calm, despair and hope, doubt and faith, with a negative feeling or the negative sentiment first. And then we're hoping that when one reads the chapter, that perhaps it's a way and a guide to go from being anxious to calm, a way to go from being powerless to being empowered. So the book's not a prescription, but it's just our little perspective. And that's how we decided to construct it, just in a really very simple way. Each chapter is pretty short. Some are a little bit longer than others. And there's two voices. There's my voice, which tells more of a storytelling voice. And it's like Noah almost writes a spiritual commentary. So that's how we decided to write it.
Yes, both the surfer and the sage. Yeah.
So when we met for the first time, Noah and I, a few years back, we sat down over lunch, and we both lived in Montecito and in Santa Barbara. We'd never met each other. We'd sort of heard about each other, and a friend introduced us. As we sat down, we'd spoken for about 10 minutes. He'd spoken for a few minutes. I'd spoken for a few minutes. And he's written many, many books, many bestsellers. And he said, hey, Shaun, let's write a book together. And it sort of took me aback, and I went, sure, man, we'll call it The Surfer and the Sage. And he went, okay, a guide to survive and ride life's waves. So that's how quick it all came together. And it was wonderful. People sort of can agonize over titles and structure. But with us, it was so natural and organic and simple. And it just came together so quickly in such a beautiful way.
That's where all the magic happens, right? And you guys,
Exactly.
you both definitely have that in this book. I mean, I love how you talk about being a storyteller. You really do. You talk about faith and how you got it from your mom and dad. It's like DNA being passed down in your bloodline. I mean, there's so much there that I think people can really connect with.
Yes, we're really hoping that. And, that word that you just mentioned, connect. I mean, I have so much reverence for the power of words, and the fundamental issue, I think, that's facing us as Americans, and not just as Americans across the planet, is this lack of connectivity. And we see it in the terrible political atmosphere here in the United States between Republicans and Democrats, both on one side of the valley, and there's just this black darkness in between. And, I'm really hoping that this little book and some of the sentiments and writings in this book can perhaps be maybe a little bit of a bridge that can connect these two people who have essentially the same values, but they've perhaps been pushed by the winds of opinion and these currents of untruth, where they've drifted apart, when in fact connect is such a good word. And I think with the book, we really want to connect people, and we want to give people hope. I would say, if you had to ask me what are the ultimate ambition, what's our ambition, and myself, what can we do with this book? We can connect people at a deeply emotional level, connect them to one another, connect them to their true purpose, and perhaps give people hope that, yes, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. You can move from doubt to faith. You can move from fear to courage. You can move from pessimism to optimism. And it comes through words. And yes, perhaps our words can help, but ultimately it's our own words that can really activate transformation and activate a new path for ourselves. And in chapter on page 77 and in chapter 8 in the book, and 77, it just worked out that way that I won the world title in 1977, is, I think, one of the most important chapters on. It's called Powerless and Empowered. And in it is a little method for writing your code, which is a simple way to find or redefine your purpose. 12 lines, every line beginning with I will. It's a simple exercise that you can do in 15 minutes. Pick up a sheet of paper and write down 12 lines, every line beginning with I will. Write down your purpose. And then share it. Share it with people you love, or if you're at work, share it with your colleagues, or if you're in a sports team, share it with your team, or if you're in a class at university or school, you can share it with your friends and schoolmates and classmates. And within that code, yes, it's about introspection, visualization, commitment, and action. But underlying it is that word that you said. It's about connect. And when you read your code and people hear it and hear these amazing words, and everyone writes amazing words, it creates this emotional connectivity and brings people together. In fact, I would love to take this onto the floor at the Senate and get 100 senators and get the 435 representatives from Congress, and every single one of them stands up, reads their code, and I'll tell you what, I believe the country would be a better place.
I'd agree with you on that. Maybe we should lock them in the room,
Exactly.
Until they get their homework done.
That's it. 15 minutes. How easy is that? And then reveal to the nation what your true purpose is. And you will see the same words will come up. I will pray. I will have faith. I will be a better spouse. I'll be a better father. I'll be a better mother. I will do what I say I will do. I will live a life with integrity. And, to be around that positivity and to be around that committed sentiment to living better and helping others live better, I really think we can create a positive wave that can break around this country, and we can turn 300 million people into 300 million surfers on this positive wave. So that's my mission.
That's a great mission to have. And, even if you're not near water, you can do that with your life. You can be a great surfer of life.
Exactly. A surfer of life. I like that.
Well, and, and you do touch on so many topics that people are really struggling with right now. And one is exhaustion. I mean, like, how many times are people just at this place where they're feeling like, I am just beyond tired. I don't know if I can take on another thing.
Absolutely. I did. It's amazing, Marianne. You don't know me, and, you've sort of looked at the book, but you are really touching on really important words. So obviously connect is vitally important, but tired. I did an event, a big talk for 500 students at San Diego State University about a month ago. And when I start my presentations, I ask people, text me a word that describes how you're feeling, and I construct a word cloud on the spot. So if you've got 500 students, they all text you a word, the more frequent words will be larger. And with these students a month ago, the biggest word was tired. So it's a fundamental issue that people are exhausted by, this 24-hour news cycle, this constant animosity and rancor and division between Republicans, Democrats, and then you've got, Ukraine, you've got thoughts of the recession, you've got inflation, you've got, it's like, how can the media ramp up the worst aspects of life and have it shoved in our face on a 24/7 basis? And it just makes us all bloody tired.
And then some. I can relate to that. And I just think people are looking for a new way of viewing things and looking at life and being able to work through life. And I love the idea of being able to catch your wave and ride it. In life, we've got to do that.
Very much so. And I like to think that when I talk about it in the book about about writing your code. It's very much about writing about your future. And then the words "I will," that is sort of the commitment to action, to taking off on the wave. Yes, you're thinking about the wave, and then those two simple words of empowerment and commitment are really the call, the anthem to action, and then you take off and then you ride that wave. So, the surfing metaphor is, I think it's so fundamental and it's so simple. And people can just visualize sitting there and waiting. You're waiting with hope and optimism, hopefully, and not with pessimism and negativity. And then that wave comes, and then you commit it. I will take the drop with commitment. And then you ride the wave, and you ride that wave into into sort of a new direction, into a new place, into a new future.
What if you have some people who are saying, well, I'm waiting for my wave, but it's not shown up yet? What do you say to those people?
On the 24th of April, 2006, my wife and I lost our beautiful 15-and-a-half-year-old son, Matthew. His name in Hebrew means gift from God. And we lost our beautiful son. He heard about a dangerous game and he played it at school. It was called the choking game. Kids wore school ties at school and he played it. He was a new student at the school. And, we'll never know whether this was a game that all students were encouraged to play. But we heard this was going around at the school, and my life was destroyed. My wife's life was destroyed, and it was a very long process of grief and recovery and coming to terms with the new world and a new life and a new wave. And I created a new wave. I rethought my life, and I went down a completely different path. And I started speaking at the largest corporations in the world, the biggest schools, universities, PTSD survivors, and I talked to people about activating commitment to live better and to help other people live better. That's what I do. And no matter where you are in life, no matter what your situation, no matter your economic status, no matter your health status, I believe that there's always opportunity for hope. There's always opportunity for optimism, no matter what, that the sun will rise tomorrow, and that even if a person is dreadfully sick, that those moments that they have left, and I've seen it. I lost my beautiful mom last year. She lived life to the full right, to the end of her life, and it was a wonderful example for me, and I think for people generally, is to live and be in that moment, be riding that wave forever.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Nothing takes away that pain of losing a child.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it was very hard for us, but we, I think both of us have really come to understand that when you help others, and when I go and do my keynotes and workshops, it helps me too. And when I show people how to use the power of their words to create life transformation, it creates a transformation in me too. So and it memorializes my beautiful son. It memorializes Matthew, because I talk about Matthew in my presentations, and when I talk to students, I talk about how important it is to be really conscious of the decisions that you make, and that when that day comes and you're going to make that decision, just think twice. Just have that moment of introspection, and have that moment of thought, and have that moment of hesitation, just to make sure that you do make the right decision. That famous Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman talks about thinking fast and thinking slow, how those two can be intimately connected, even though they're separate. One is instinctive and one is analytical, but you need to merge them both together in order to make the best decision for oneself.
Well, I have no doubt the many lives that you have touched by sharing, your family, Matthew's story, having young people look at the decisions they make, and, all people look at the decisions they make and rethink, like, hey, am I making a sound decision? Is this the right decision for me?
It sounds so juvenile and it sounds so childlike, this code process, writing 12 lines, every line beginning with "I will," writing it in 15 minutes. And it is juvenile. because it was originally constructed as a way to empower young people. But some of the biggest businessmen and some of the biggest corporations in the United States and across the world are using this simple process now as a way not only for people to become re-energized and reconnected to their purpose, but also to become reconnected to one another. And like you used that word connect, this is fundamental, I think, to having a sort of a nourished society, a society that is more focused on well-being for the population. Let's get everyone connected, and this is such a simple way to do it. And I like to say it's open source code, so it can be used in any way, shape, or form if it's for the good of humanity.
Definitely for the good of humanity. Yeah. Well, Shaun, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about The Surfer and the Sage and your other books and be part of your community?
Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. You can connect with me on Instagram. A lot of people just email me direct. They go to my website, ShaunTomson.com, and it's spelled ShaunTomson. You can go there. You can even write your code on the website. So I love to connect with people. I connect with people across the world, and I would love more and more people to become part of this community and just spread the word about the code. It's super simple. It's absolutely inexpensive. All it takes is 15 minutes of your time, and then I hope people manage to pick up a copy of our beautiful new book. It was really written a guide. I mean, I think the words that Noah chose to describe the essence of it, it's a guide, a real guide to survive and ride life's waves.
Well, Shaun, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and it's been a true pleasure. And certainly, you've really touched on really important points about being tired and being connected. And hopefully, our book can be a bridge and can be a source of inspiration to people. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you, Shaun. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Surfer and the Sage. The Surfer and the Sage is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And remember to support our indie bookstores. Make sure to visit Shaun's website at ShaunTomson.com. That's spelled ShaunTomson.com to be part of his community, learn more about his work, and see how you can get involved in making a change for the better. Well, we're going to pause here for a quick moment, and we'll be right back after this message. I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.